Speaker, the last piece that I want to talk a little bit about as a government and as a Northern Caucus member that I'm very proud that we committed to and continued our commitment to is the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund. Back in 2003, when I was first elected to this legislature, I was appointed the parliamentary assistant to the then Minister of Northern Development and Mines, Rick Bartolucci. And one of the first things that he asked me to do in my capacity as his parliamentary assistant was to tour the province and to see what we were going to ultimately do with the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund. When that fund was created in the late 80s by the Liberal government of David Peterson, the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund was intended to be there to create private sector employment in the province of Ontario. And somewhere from its inception in the late 80s to the time we arrived in 2003, that $60 million per year was no longer being used to create private sector employment, but had become a public infrastructure fund, I guess for lack of using perhaps stronger language. The purpose of the tour that I undertook in 2004, we toured about 8 communities in the province of Ontario, and in each of those 8 communities I would think we heard from anywhere from 15 to 25 different groups. All of those groups, no, wrong to say all of them, many of those groups maintained and came through very clearly to me that they were interested in seeing the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund revert back to its original mandate under David Peterson in terms of trying to create private sector jobs in the province of Ontario. So when that consultation ended, we came back, we filed an interim report, and that's exactly what we've been seeing happening in Northern Ontario with that fund for some 4 or 5 years now. But more to the point, when we were elected in 2003, the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund had $60 million in it. In the 2007 election, we made a commitment that the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund, we were going to ramp it up by $10 million a year over the course of the next 4 years. In 2008, it went from $60 million to $70 million. In 2009, it went from $70 million to $80 million. And from 2009 to 2010, as contained in our budget, we have met our commitment. There is now $90 million this year in the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund, 30 more than there was in 2007, representing 60 more million having been spent in those 3 years on top of the original $60 million annually spent through that fund. Speaker, this represents a tremendous commitment to the people of Northern Ontario. It would have been very, very easy for us to have taken that 60, 70, 80 million out of the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund. It would have been very simple for us not to maintain the commitment to go from 60 to 70 or from 70 to 80 or from 80 to 90 million dollars, given the economic circumstances that we find ourselves in. It would have been very simple. But not only have we maintained the fund, we've increased the fund by $30 million over the last 3 years, now up to $90 million there to create private sector employment in Northern Ontario only. We could have taken it out and we didn't. And I should remind people interested in Northern Ontario as well that the last time there was a recession in the province of Ontario, when the NDP were in government, they took the entire $60 million out of the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund and did something with it. I wasn't here at the time, but I'm sure they thought they found what was a more appropriate use for it at that time. I'm not sure the people of Northern Ontario agreed with them. Speaker, my 20 minutes is up. But I just want to say and thank all the members of Northern Caucus who worked very hard on these issues that I've had 20 minutes here today to speak about. We're very excited about this budget. We think it's a good budget, especially given the economic circumstances that we find ourselves in the province at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions and comments? Member from